progressive nature of vectored resistance offers several advantages to working that are unique to this type of force. So elastic bands, they increase resistance as you stretch them. So as you move your connection point away from the anchor point, the force you're going to be able to work with is going to get stronger. This means several things. First of all, what it means is that whatever motion you're moving doesn't carry any momentum. There's no momentum that the same momentum you would have with gravity when you swing a kettlebell or push a weight fast and hard. So that lack of momentum means that you can train plyometrically in a lot of different ways, very, very safely and very effectively. Secondly, this continual addition or strengthening of resistance as you pull away means that you can work. You can create different work for eccentric contractions. So for example here, there's a range of motion. I have enough strength to work that curl at this distance. If I step back a bit here now, I've added some resistance. I'm now really past the point where I can handle that curl. So if I assist it up, say with my hand here, now I can pull that down and now I've got extra resistance for the eccentric contraction. You can work this in a lot of different ways. For example, here I'm working a fly, all right, across my body. If I step away here now, I'm past the point where I can work that in, but I can bring that over, and now I've got extra resistance for the eccentric part of the contraction. That's a very helpful, useful thing for lots of different types of work, and you can create that additional resistance lots of different ways, either by moving away from the anchor point with your body weight or by assisting with your hand with another hand, say if you're working single side. The other thing that this progressive nature of the resistance also provides you is the ability to create very precise amounts of resistance. So if I'm working here doing a pal-off press, just simply lunging out further is going to add some significant challenge to that work. So throughout any routine, just by moving away from the anchor point, I can create additional or less resistance through different ranges of motion to add more variety or to add the potential to do certain movements that I can't do with additional resistance. This factor, this gradual increase of resistance, is an important and useful feature of this type of work. One thing I should note to you, the curve of resistance. The resistance increases as the band is, not only does it increase, but it increases at an increasing rate. It's not a straight line relationship. The longer the band that you have that you're working with, the more gradual the change in resistance is going to be. The longer bands are generally more useful to work with for a lot of reasons. And that. As you can see from the graph here, there isn't a straight line relationship between the distance and the force created. The curve starts to go up, and so you can see that not only does the resistance increase, but it increases at an increasing rate. This has implications for working with longer resistance bands because not only does the resistance increase more gradually, you also have in that sweet spot where the resistance is increasing at a more consistent rate, you've got more working resistance in that range as well. So a lot of good reasons. A more gradual change in the resistance and a longer working range of resistance and also a longer range of motion. So you can see, particularly when you work with the long resistance bands, that they are, again, you can see the whole idea of the usefulness of the resistance band for plyometric moves. Certainly one of the things that needs to be considered always when you're working with elastic resistance, of course, is that the resistance can pull you back towards the anchor quickly as well. So it definitely needs to be worked with in a controlled fashion. It's particularly easy when you're doing plyometric work to get into overspeed situations or get into an unbalanced situation, as you can see with some of these kicks here. However, it's still a very, very useful force to work with plyometrically in a lot of different ways. That is the and the longer band is more interesting plyometrically as well, because again, that force, you can get the force you want and you can work with it through a full longer range of motion, with more precise control of the resistance. In these next clips, you can see how different punching motions can be used, striking motions, with the high-low anchor. Another interesting characteristic, of course, of resistance we'll explore in more depth in videos to come is the whole nature of the vectored aspect of resistance. It's a fundamental principle of elastic resistance that you can create force in lots of different ranges of motion. Again, you can see the potential of working this type of resistance plyometrically as well. These next clips here, I worked when I first started working this way with a group of football linemen at Concordia University in Montreal, and this one fella here, you can see in the foreground what he's got going on here is a unilateral press, and then he lunges out to create more resistance to add up, to load up on the eccentric. Now these were all offensive linemen, and this was a great little workout for them. As was mentioned earlier in the video, the idea of creating eccentric, extra-eccentric resistance for specific ranges of motion is a very, very useful thing for athletes in particular. What's being demonstrated here, as you can see now, we're starting to talk about how you can use the isometric resistance. In these presses, you can see that I'm keeping one hand under isometric resistance while I'm doing an isotonic movement with the other hand. So, in all kinds of different routines here, using again the high-low anchor and taking advantage of the sort of the multi-dimensional aspect of the resistance, you can see the other hand is working isometrically. So, being able to move multi-dimensionally, being able to work isometrically, again, you can see how the principle of elastic resistance allows you to create all these different ranges of motion and work rates, which allows you to also sort of create routines that flow, that give you lots and lots of density as you move from one exercise to another, as you fatigue one muscle group or one specific approach, and then you can very easily move to another movement and get different work that allows you to keep the overall work rate up. Here, this type of work here, you can see I'm also using the bands a little bit like a strap, sort of aiding myself, and using it to give me a little balance while I sort of go through this little. In this exercise here, you can see working a Palloff press, demonstrating the isometric qualities of elastic resistance. Also, you can see as I'm doing these side steps, I'm adding more or less resistance, to the press. Obviously, the further away I press the handle away from my body, I'm going to get more resistance from the leverage effect. And the oscillation of the band, of course, now there is a new dimension in a Palloff press. It just basically adds stability challenge to the whole thing. It is something quite unique, as you can see, to elastic resistance, this oscillation property. Here, just simply demonstrating the notion of being able to work in a lot of different vector directions. We get to this in the section on creating vectors of resistance, which is the first section basically, and it's all about the anchor point itself. Our second section, we get into how we create different types of connections. You saw previously using a handle with asymmetric force. Here, basically, what you see is we're using the oscillation, the long, gentle increase of resistance, simply to create a little traction on the shoulder with no grip. The handle is just looped around the wrist, and it's a great way to get a little stretch across the shoulders. It's another way again to work with elastic resistance and the oscillation as well.